welcome everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from today. My name is Sigrid and I'm Senior Director of Communications at Delivery Hero. And frankly speaking, I could not be more excited to host this special Hero Talks today. We're here to celebrate a major milestone in Delivery Hero's history, our first decade of operations. To do just that, we have some amazing guests who I'm very sure will tell a story or two that would leave us, should I say, hungry for more. So everyone, please put on your party hats and get your piece of birthday cake ready, because Delivery Hero is turning 10 years this month. With me to celebrate today, we have our one and only Niklas Östberg, CEO and co-founder of Delivery Hero. Hey, Niklas.
Hey, hey.
We have Sofia Tavares, SVP of Brand. Welcome, Sofia.
Hi, everybody.
And we have Jakob Angele, CEO of Foodpanda APAC. Hi, Jakob.
Hey, everybody.
It's so great to bring you all to one table today because you've been part of the growth of Delivery Hero for the larger part of the last decade and played a pretty crucial role in shaping this company. Now, I'm looking forward to traveling back and forth in time with you, giving our audience some exclusive insights to how Delivery Hero became what it is today, the world's leading local delivery platform. To all our listeners, a warm welcome also to you, and please feel free to ask your questions in the comment section. Our panelists will answer them later live in the session, so don't be shy. But before we dive into your memories and unforgettable stories, I'm curious to see how you're doing today. Niklas, 10 years of Delivery Hero. Are there any words to describe how this makes you feel?
Oh, no, no, very excited, super happy, very proud. It feels fantastic. It's been such a journey. I don't know, I could have never imagined. So very proud, very happy, very excited for the future as well.
Sofia, you've been part of Delivery Hero for the vast majority of this decade. What about you?
I would never have imagined that I would stay for 8 years here. It's just been a really crazy roller coaster, a really happy one. It's really exciting every day. Never ever boring at Delivery Hero, I would say. And yeah, it's exciting to be part of this 10-year celebration, to be here for this big landmark. It's crazy where we are so far. Yeah.
And last to you, Jakob. You're the CEO of Foodpanda APAC, currently based in Singapore. Happy lunch. What does 10 year mean to you?
Very, very similar to Sofia. I joined Foodpanda around 7 years ago, and then around 5 years ago, Foodpanda joined the Delivery Hero family, as so many other regional brands like a Talabat or Petit Dossier and so on. And 5 years ago, obviously for us back then, I still remember it was a very kind of uncertain time, and I think also it took quite some convincing to Niklas to actually acquire Foodpanda back then, if I recall correctly. And so, it has been a very exciting ride. Before, like the 2 years with Foodpanda, but then also, of course, the 5 years with being part of the Delivery Hero family. And very exciting.
Yeah, I'm still very happy we did it though, but it did require some convincing. That's very true.
I do hope so. You're happy. Good.
Amazing. So speaking of convincing, you all decided either to join or to found, that's you, Niklas, Delivery Hero. And what I would like to understand a little bit is, how was your first day? Do you even remember your first day? And how was your first day in comparison to any day that you might have this week? I know it's quite a bit far back, but if you remember, what was it like?
No, you can imagine it was me and one intern on the first day and doing research while I just tried to hire people. And thinking of what it could become and which markets and what do we do and how do I get engineers and how do I build a product and how it's very much uncertainty. I guess I don't know, the uncertainty is still there, but it's on a very different level. It's I don't know, now we have 27,000 employees and almost 1 million riders. And back then, if I didn't get up in the morning, then well, there will be some research done from the intern, but not much more. Now, if I don't get up in a day, then I don't know, still 1 million things are going to be done that I know of or don't even know of. So it's, of course, it's a very different world I'm living in now. Yeah, it's very hard to compare. Both very exciting, but I would still argue that it has become more and more fun every year, seeing so much happening. And sometimes I'm involved in it, and sometimes I'm not even involved in it, and still things happen. So that's fantastic.
Niklas, at that stage, how did you get an intern to join?
Yeah.
What did you tell them?
That I don't know. It was no. We had a big vision, and of course, as an intern, someone who's first job was very excited, and he probably believed in this business more than anyone. Nils Höcker, he kind of painted the world as this going to be so big. And he was the one really believing in me. I don't know, he bought into the story more than any investor, more than anyone else. So I don't know, he was easy to convince. I don't know, he helped me, I don't know, dream big here. But this was, of course, just a couple of days. Then I don't know, after a few more days, then there were, I don't know, 5 people in the office. Still very manual work and a very blank sheet of paper. Thinking about what do we do, how do we structure and organize this. So very different.
Thanks for sharing, Niklas. Sofia, 8 years passed in a blink. How was your first day?
To the ones that know me, I have very good memory. I remember it really well, like it was yesterday. And I actually joined before my official start date. It was an offsite, and it's good delivery hero fashion to like, you need to be here as soon as possible. So that's what I did. And it was great because everybody that worked in marketing was there that day. And I just really remember feeling, wow, so many opportunities, so many things to learn. And I just felt like I'm so happy that I'm part of this. That's the feeling I just felt observing people. I also remember one person from my first day, Niklas, which was Caroline, who I'm super happy and proud that is still working side by side with me and doing amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that this is a very delivery hero story, right? People just love to be part of this, and there's a very strong culture, I believe. And the team was, of course, much smaller. It looked really different. How in marketing was all set up. My team was just designers, and then I had other things. And, you know, I had also a journey at Delivery Hero, and my role has been shaped in different ways. But it's just so exciting to see how far people have come, what we do have come, and how different my day looks now, of course. Because it's like what Niklas is saying, like so many markets, so many projects. It's just a lot of exciting things always happening, and my day really starts really early, finishes very late, but there's still like that drive that you're still seeing a lot of things moving, which is just exciting. And I think, yeah, this is, still like the first day sometimes.
Also, one of the biggest pros dealing with time differences, I feel that you are, Sofia, at Delivery Hero, covering 50 markets. Jakob, where actually did you start, and what was it like?
I don't have such a good memory as Sofia, I think. So I don't recall exactly my first day, I have to be frank. But my starting day, my start was also in Berlin, actually, because Foodpanda, just by accident, happened to have their headquarters also in Berlin, actually. And I just remember that, like, those early days, it was just a crazy period of time. Yeah, it was like the energy was great, but on the other hand, we also like really didn't understand how this business actually works. What are we actually doing? Do we need a lot restaurants? Do we need only 10 restaurants? Do we need riders? Do we have the restaurant deliver? Do we need marketing in the first place, or is our service so great that we know people come from by themselves and things like that? So very kind of fundamental questions, to be honest. And so, it was a super exciting time. It was also a super busy time with, just almost running around, opening new countries. I still remember at one point I opened, I think, Serbia or something. And I had in my schedule 1 week kind of to open the country, and then I had to go somewhere else or something like this, and with no prep work or anything. And it was just really hiring the first 3 people and giving a quick shout out to the product guys that they should turn live a website or something like this. So a very, very crazy period, a lot of fun, I have to say, but also very different very different than today. Yeah.
It reminds me a little bit when Jakob speaks about that, also how opening a market, and remember the first market we opened, I think it was Korea, or second market was Korea, and you're sitting there and waiting. I wonder how many orders we'll get on the first day. I wonder how many orders. Maybe it's going to be 50, maybe it's going to be, because we did some marketing for it. And often ended up being 4, or and it was the team were 3 of them. So and you had spoken about this, this is gonna be huge, this is gonna be so big, and it's gonna be so exciting, and you felt all the employees and all the team members were a little bit oh, did I really join this company? We did 4 orders today, so it was a very.
I would agree with that. I mean, one super big difference back then was just the scale we operated. Yeah, I still, I remember there was one country we opened it, and 3 months later we did 10 orders a day. Yeah, and we were not terribly unhappy with it. It could have been better, but 10 orders a day wasn't too bad. And so we had targets to kind of reach 50 orders a day, right? And that seemed very ambitious to us back then. And so this whole scale we operated back in the days, it's just on a completely different level than what we are doing now, of course. So it's quite fascinating. Yeah.
I still remember being in one of these group things that we did at the Tube. You remember, Niklas, right? And you standing in front of us and just going, "We're going to be doing 1 million orders a day." And I was and everybody thought, "You're insane, but we're going to do this," and look at us. It's crazy, right? This whole...
I was always very bullish. I always threw some big numbers out there, and those big numbers were being 1 million orders a day. That was just a little bit cuckoo. But now doing 9 million orders a day on a good day. It's even the wildest dreams and the wildest hopes kind of got overachieved them.
Yeah. Let's pull that out a little bit. So you mentioned, Niklas, that it was a wild idea. In the beginning, your intern was the biggest advocate for the fact that food delivery might actually hit. Some investors were not really buying into this idea. They're like, is it going to work? No, people want to go to restaurants. So first of all, where did this idea come from? And when did you, after all of this uphill, maybe external perceptions, when did you realize that this is actually going to fly?
Oh, so I don't know, for me it started in a way a little bit earlier. So I was actually part of setting up a small company in Sweden, very similar there. So me calling the sales guy 4 times a day, seeing where he is, did he sign up in more restaurants. I also remember had a day when I had 2 phones, because I had to call every restaurant, see if they did delivery, because we didn't have our own delivery. So while I was calling on this one, I was dialing on the other phone, and I was changing. So I think I did a few hundred calls in a couple of hours. So this kind of was the early days when you had to do everything yourself. But I had learned then a little bit about food delivery and kind of learned to love it and how amazing the service can be, and So I felt like this can be so much more. I know people love the service. I have to do this beyond Sweden and beyond the couple of markets where I've done it, and we have to do it much bigger, much faster. So I was super excited, and when you started the second time, you felt that it's going to be so much easier. You know everything, but for me it wasn't really. It was still the same thing. It was still really chasing to get a couple of orders in on a daily basis in the beginning. So But yeah, no, for me, I just fell in love with the whole concept, all the user feedback that we got, people really sending feedback that was almost like love letters on how amazing it was and how it saved their life. And I just felt like I have to do this and beyond just a couple of markets. So that's why and how.
Did you feel the same way, Jakob, when you were ramping up Foodpanda?
Yeah, no, for sure. Very, very similar. I mean, back in the days, like, I mean, now everybody talks about food delivery, right? And if you kind of open the business news, you see articles about it and so on, which, I mean, obviously is very exciting for everybody of us. But back in the days, like food delivery was like totally unexciting. There was like, especially in Germany, it was almost, I would say, almost stigmatized. Yeah, where you say, oh yeah, no, it's unhealthy food, and you shouldn't eat pizza because delivery and pizza was kind of like the same thing for people and so on. And so yeah, it was a very different time back then. I still remember in the early days when, for example, talking to the bigger restaurant groups like a McDonald's or so, I mean, in the first place, they wouldn't even talk to you. Yeah, they would be like, "Who are you? Like, we don't care about you," and so on. And so, yeah, it took a lot of kind of convincing and hard, small little successes to move this whole thing forward, for sure. Yeah.
It's really hard to imagine today that food delivery hasn't existed forever, and that, I don't know, but keep in mind, like, the mobile phone was almost started back then. We almost only had web traffic in the beginning, because I don't know, ordering on a phone was also, no one believed that they would be ordering on a phone. I think we were one of the first in 2011 to say that now we really want to go hard on mobile, and but that was, I don't know, that was a couple of % of our traffic at that point in time. So often many people had a PC with a big screen, not like a flat screen. So you can imagine that it was just like food delivery. It was, I don't know, really, people didn't believe in it, or they remember when I tried to sell it to investors, said, yeah, maybe in Sweden this works because they're all broadband. They all have broadband in Sweden, but in no other market will this work. And then it's like UK came and said, yeah, but UK and US, I don't know, that's a different culture aspect, but this will not work in any other market than maybe Sweden, UK, US. And so it was very new. It was very unknown. A lot of people couldn't even understand how it could work. How can you on a phone get someone to order or get a pizza? They often thought that you would type in here, someone would call a restaurant, order a pizza, and get it delivered, which might also have been the case in some instances.
Yeah, not in the beginning.
Order transmission at its best.
Yeah, because the restaurant couldn't take the order, didn't have a laptop in their store. So in some cases might even have I don't know, we didn't have a device in all locations, or maybe not the device fast enough. So we even had to call in orders. So it was a completely different time, and it's completely unimaginable today that this hasn't existed forever, the service. But back then it was very different.
Yeah, very true.
So, Niklas, you mentioned the word culture, and I want to zoom in on that a little bit. We look at Delivery Hero, we have offices all over the world, and as many companies just like Foodpanda, most of the entities started as a small startup and now has moved into either a grown-up or a scale-up size, whatever we would like to call it. And at Delivery Hero, we're quite proud of the culture that we are living and breathing every single day. And I have not been here for as long as you are, so I don't have the magic recipe for how this culture has been preserved from day one, whether it's in Singapore or Stockholm, until now. So I want to understand how it all happened. And maybe starting with you, Jakob, because you've done that very trip, especially for a local brand that then expanded also a lot regionally. So if you look at early days being a startup, you said yourself, you went and launched one market one day, another market the next. How do you build up this entrepreneurial yet caring culture in such a fast time across so many locations?
Yeah, interesting question. I kind of feel like in terms of kind of culture building, it's actually easier in a small company. I feel like in a small company, like taking the example of Niklas, like he and his intern, right? Like, I mean, it's very simple to build a good culture in such a company, because simply by your own actions and you know, how you act as an example, how you interact with your managers, already does kind of, you know, 70% of the trick, kind of thing. Yeah. And I think for small companies, this works super well. For mid-sized companies, probably to some extent also. But obviously, Foodpanda and together with Delivery Hero, we are very far beyond that at this point. Yeah? And so that's where I think culture becomes a bit more like a structured effort, so to say. Yeah, where, you know, you have those. You write your values down, you put it on the walls of meeting rooms, you include it in your performance reviews and so on. And you do podcasts like we are doing today, right? Where you talk about values. And I think this is much more difficult, because it's around thousands of people. Like, I still remember back in the days, every single person we hired in Singapore, either I talked to that person anyways during the interview process, or in the first week I talked to them. Yeah. Nowadays, just logistically, that's not possible anymore. And so this kind of aspect of kind of communicating culture and values doesn't work anymore. Yeah? And there's many examples like that. And so I think for larger companies like us, it's significantly harder to do that. But at the same time, I think we did a great job, like Niklas and the team in Berlin, and Foodpanda in Asia. Also, we are undertaking more and more efforts into that direction to have a more structural approach to this topic. Yeah.
And Sofia, your team is one of the most international teams that we have in Delivery Hero SE in Berlin. It's also one of the teams that interacts most with our markets on a very daily basis. How would you say that influences your team culture, or does it?
I think it really does, because, well, we do visual, and visual is, you know, is emotional, right? I think that everything that you do as touch points, people recognize the brands as visual. So somehow there is a lot that cascades down to the brands and to the people that work, because, you know, with Jacob, we're actually joking around last week around the rebranding, etc. and how he thought I was crazy when I said we're going to do it pink, and he's like, Sofia, you're crazy. And now kind of he said our USP, you know. But I think because we really try to understand the markets, we really try to build the best thing for each of the brands and the markets, then somehow people feel proud and recognizing that effort too. So I think it's kind of a loop somehow. And I think it's really important what you said around being a very international team. I really am very proud to probably have 30 nationalities, and we have in the team, because if we want to succeed globally, you have to have a global approach in the team, and you have to have people from all over the place so that they can think differently, right? Yeah, it's been exciting, I have to be honest. Also, even working with the team on shaping the values and how do we pass that along. But I think, like Jacob said, it's more difficult with scale. But somehow, I think if you find the right people, it's all about the people, right? People that match your values, and making sure that everybody that we add is matching them. Because there's a lot of really talented people out there, but not everybody can join that ride with you. Right, so I think that it's really about that identification of really the right people, I think. And of course, as we had some, I think, to be really, really honest, I felt there was points that we were kind of losing the culture, because we have this hyper growth, right? And then a lot of people come in and we have to hire fast. And even me as a manager, I've made mistakes, and then I've learned from my mistakes. And, you know, I keep making mistakes too, but still, it's more about how to actually find find your crowd. I feel like we have our crowd at Delivery Hero. The culture is very strong, and I'm actually in Tel Aviv right now, which makes me so happy to be on a business trip and to be here. because it was one of my last business trips as well, was to do the rebranding here. And to just see everybody on the streets, the riders running around, and just to see on their backs the done, which is the mentality of Talabat, it's very emotional for me as well. So I think culture is this, it's building some assets that really transpire, but it's all about the people. And sorry, maybe I rambled a bit, but difficult question to answer to, but yeah.
But it's very true. It in the beginning it's so easy, as Jakob said. I don't know. We were sitting in a similar, I don't know, room to this. I don't know. So this is a hotel room, like an apartment type, sitting 5 people, and you can change the strategy, you can change the values, you can change the ambition in 2 seconds. I don't know. You just turn around and you speak to everyone in the company, and you go to lunch with everyone every day. So and then you grow and you hire, and suddenly there are 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. And I think that was one of the hardest part for Delivery Hero, because we grew so fast and there were more new people than there were existing people who could maintain and telling the story and telling the values. And we haven't yet kind of built the support structure for it. So we hadn't yet had a strong people department team, a strong comms team, obviously, here with you, Sigrid. So you come to a point where it's almost like you break yourself by the hiring and the growth that you're having, as you're not able, there are not enough people to able to tell the story and the values. There are more new people. So I think there were a few very tough years in between the first day and day 10 or year 10.
Cool. So what I'm taking with me from that harder question, maybe, did not prepare you for that one, is the importance of structurally approaching culture to make sure that it trickles down throughout the entire organization, feeding it into the teams. Maybe also going more for lunch when it's possible together again to have that connection, and there's cherishing the fact that we're all different, and that adds to our culture. And maybe the fourth one, that we do come and unite across our corporate values, because that really is a red thread across our organization and business. And speaking of red thread, I want to jump to colors. See what I did there in terms of bridging. Which brings me to Sofia. Delivery Hero has a little bit of a different approach when it comes to branding. So a lot of companies, especially within our own industry, they usually have a blanket brand that they paint across the world or the markets where they operate in. But Delivery Hero has done it in quite a different way. So could you just explain why I don't see Delivery Hero riders when I go to Singapore, Dubai or Stockholm, but completely different brands?
To be honest, I think it's a great strength of ours to do it the way we do, because we've grown a lot by acquisition, just like Jakob joined the team, right? So, we acknowledge basically that each market and region is quite unique, and for us each brand is unique, right? But at the same time, we have tools and methodologies, and the way we approach topics is really similar. And I think that having that global strength and how we apply it to the markets is the winning combination of our success, as at least managing the brands. But we always really start by understanding what will make us win, in that market. And we try to challenge, and here back to the color thing with Foodpanda, but we try to challenge the teams on their day-to-day, but we also build things together. And I think that puts us in great position, to have those regional, local brands, but with a global approach. I think it's just, it opens the door for opportunities that you wouldn't be able to do if you have just one brand. In my opinion, I don't know if
I think that's also part of success, that we have this local approach, because when a company gets so big, it's all about making sure you have a structure that everyone feels, or everyone has an ownership, and that's when you really care, because you have an ownership and you care for delivering on that ownership. And so kind of making sure in our case then that each country will have a clear ambition and ownership, and of course to get support by regional setups and central setups, but they still feel like they they own the market. They, if they want to be successful in Pakistan, then they have to do it there. And they will even be down to the city level. That is, someone will be like, I'm going to show that this could be the best service in Islamabad. And if it's not going to be the best service in Islamabad, then I haven't delivered and haven't done. So you have to break down the problem in kind of the small pieces that everyone can actually own their topic. And I think that also helps building that culture, that the caring, the day one, the impact, breaking it down that way. So I think that's also part of the strength, that we're able to be a company of this size and still everyone feeling like they can have an impact, and they have an impact.
Yeah. Should I add something? No, you go.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jakob.
With this different branding setup, I think it's also one facet that really shows something what's special about Delivery Hero. I mean, I think most people know, right? A lot of, or pretty much all of the regions and brands have been acquired at one point in time. And I don't think there's another company out there who kind of did so many very successful M&A transactions and were able actually to do a transaction and acquire like a Talabat or a Foodpanda, and then convert this into so much growth and value. Yeah. Very often when you read in the news, company A buys company B, then 2 years later, you read also that no value or no growth came out of company B after that acquisition. You see that very, very often. It's actually not so easy to do. And so I think Delivery Hero, and they're also kind of course, a shout out to Niklas. I think what Delivery Hero does super, super well, really acquiring companies and then somehow giving them the means, but also the room and the freedom to stay successful. And I think that has been proven over and over with many deals now, latest of course Uber and so on. And so the brand, a bit more brand autonomy than what you would normally expect from a company like Delivery Hero is probably also one of those facets where you can see that. Yeah.
And nothing of that would be possible without our people. So I promised in the beginning that we would take a little trip down memory lane and hopefully get some personal anecdotes from 3 very senior and professional leaders at Delivery Hero. So what I wanted to ask you is, do you have any favorite moments from the past 10 years with your team members? Was there anything that, wow, this was a huge spark, or when I look back at something that happened 3 years ago, it still makes me smile, or that winter party was unforgettable, or that business trip just made my year? Is there anything that you would be willing to share?
Oh, there are so many. I hope that Sofia or Jakob have good memories here, but there are so many. There are so many parties that have been and seen the excitement and the fun they're having. There have been features that have launched and seen that those actually come to life and actually successful. And I can still remember the feeling of seeing how people are using it. I also remember for me, when we got the first proper investment, and we have to remember that back in 2011, 12, 13, there were no 500 million investments by Sequoia into a European tech company, and that didn't exist. There were maybe a 5 million check or a 10 million check at the very best case. So the getting that first proper financing, it was the largest finance in Europe at that point in time. It was 100 million financed by Inside Venture. It was much larger than anything we have seen in the past in any other company back then. And I remember just feeling this relief, because I had been on a razor thin margin over and over again, how you have to constantly get money, and I share with my team, and I love my team, and I love the people working at Delivery Hero, and I felt such a responsibility to making sure that we also deliver. But I knew that this is not possible to deliver without having financing, and constantly having this pressure that I have to succeed in the next financing, I have to get it done again. And when that financing came, I felt such a relief and felt like, now it's finally up to us. Now we are at the point where if we fail, then we probably didn't deserve to succeed either, because now we had the chance and everything in our hands to build a fantastic company. So I remember that as a very happy, but also just a big relief, a little bit like Katie Freeman, I think, on the 400-meter run in Olympics in Sydney, where she just come to the goal and just feel like she's not happy, she's just relieved, and I felt a little bit like that, but it was still such a good moment for me to see that now we can build what we really wanted to build.
And how did you celebrate? Did you celebrate, or was it more like, okay, done deal, now we can speed ahead?
It was very well timed with actually a company party. So for some reason we always have a good time with company parties. There will always be some transaction or some financing, yeah. So that day we had a company party and we could announce it there, and it was of course a fantastic celebration. It was truly amazing.
Talking about announcements and parties, do you remember when you went on stage at the Christmas party and announced we acquired Foodpanda? You were so happy. Just so you know, Jacob, it took convincing, but he was very happy about it, by the way.
Yeah, I do remember that.
You remember that? Yeah.
We were actually in negotiations that night, and we had a company party, and still at 1 o'clock in the night, there was still no deal announced. We were like, oh, I hope we get this done, and constantly on the phone. I was just waiting, are we getting it done? And then finally we got it done. I think 3 o'clock in the morning, and there was still people celebrating like there was no tomorrow.
I believe we extended the party. You remember? I think we were supposed to close at a certain time, and we kind of, in a good tradition, we extended it.
One more hour. Let's do one more hour.
Remember? It was so fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that. That's a good memory. Yeah.
Jacob, Sofia, anything you would like to share?
I mean, of course, there has been probably like hundreds of kind of amazing moments and milestones and the great parties and so on. So I had a bit more time to think about my answer here, obviously. So I think one moment where kind of I felt a lot of kind of things fell into place somehow was when in I think 2018, I believe, where we had our first kind of real regional country CEO summit, and I think it was in Philippines or so, where for the first time like we were all sitting together. We had kind of 8 country CEOs, which all very capable, all knew actually what they're doing, all also senior. At the same time, there was the regional team, which similar, all great people. And we had just amazing sessions during that MD summit. And for me, that was was one of those moments where I really felt, okay, everything is kind of falling into place now. Yeah. So the next year will be amazing for Foodpanda, because we have a great team. And of course, before that, there were also amazing people and so on. But it was always like a bit, we were still very much in firefighting mode. Yeah? We were just kind of trying to stay afloat a little bit. And that was, I think, the first time where we had a strong senior team, also with strong country organizations below and so on, where we really kind of got the feeling we can be proactive and can really drive the topics we want. And I think that was great. Yeah.
I have a couple of moments, if it's okay, I would like to share it too. So one, it's very recent. It happened last week. And I think something quite amazing. We were nominated as a team for one of the most prestigious design awards. And this is side by side with big agencies, big brands, big budgets. And I honestly could not be more proud of my team. It's a really cool project, everything done in-house. And just to feel like this recognition that we are like an agency to the world, not people would pay to work with us, so this is so amazing. And it's good because it's fresh, it keeps us energy, keeps us the drive going that, you can always really do better. And another one is personal, but it involves everybody. I think the IPO day was also really special for me. I think you know, I worked really hard for this. I think a lot of people worked very hard for it in different ways, and everybody contributed. And I don't know if somehow there was a validation that day that I could breathe somehow. And then the next day we went even crazier, and I feel like it's been a very steep curve every day. But I don't know, I felt like that day, well, in my mind, I was like, let's make sure that everybody here has the best day possible, that the people in the markets can see it live, you know, they can celebrate. And I remember coming back to Berlin and the party that was happening at the office and how people were so excited. I remember being there and doing a few illegal things that I should not mention to make that day more special in Frankfurt. But it was just a crazy day, but it's just felt like a lifetime opportunity. And it came together, so it's something I will never forget. I think I'll cherish this very close to me. Yeah.
Thank you, Sofia. Thank you, Jakob and Niklas. I'll share my favorite memory. It's a bit more low-key than your memories. It was the first time I could meet the full team that we had ramped up for communications, and we had a picnic outside the Delivery Hero headquarters in Montbéliard Park. We had ordered some really amazing food, and everyone was just coming together, and in true problem-solving fashion, one of our corporate values is we're delivering solutions. A problem immediately occurred. We had no corkscrews for our wine bottles. So we're thinking, oh no, what are we gonna do? Now it's our first little summer party and we can't even open the wine. So the team went over to a construction site, which was 5 meters away from the picnic. And I don't know how they did it. Yes, I know what. I left my ID as a fund, and we got to borrow actual screwdrivers. And with those screwdrivers, we were managing to open up the bottles of wine. And after that point, I was like, okay, if this team can do this, we're gonna rock communications. And that was just... And the wine was good too, so it was a perfect moment.
It is one of our 3 values, is to deliver solutions. So I'm very happy to hear that you really found a solution that fast.
Yeah, in a matter of minutes. I mean, it was also a very important problem to solve, but we made it. Okay, so we have a lot of questions actually from our listeners. So I would like to start tapping into some of them. And the last one, or the first one actually, might go to you, Jakob. This is a question from James. He's based in Singapore and he has a neighbor called Ingo who works for Foodpanda. And he introduced him to the new feature Panda Mart. And James is wondering how it is possible to deliver such a fast speed when you order from when you order from the Panda Mart, and if there's any interesting stories behind making it possible.
Thank you very much for the very positively phrased question. I appreciate that. I think a lot of pretty much all regions, and of course a big part of the Berlin headquarters is really engaged with D-Mart or Panda Mart or I don't know, Talabat Mart, however it's called in the other regions. And I think that the truth about delivering, like 2,000 to 4,000 SKUs in 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, the truth is it's actually pretty hard. Yeah, it's not easy to do. It requires a lot of smart thinking from operational teams and how to set the store layout, what stores to rent. It's about optimizing the SKUs. It obviously relies on a complete seamless working logistics setup, which to some extent we already have, and so on. And then there's also like a huge technology component to it. Which is far beyond just what you see in the app and on the app clients and the front ends and so on. So it's quite tough to do that actually, but I think that's also one of those great things about it, because it's not so easy to copy, and it's also like therefore really a service where you can surprise your customers. Yeah, I mean, kind of ordering, like I just had this incident like. With my wife, with my family, I was doing baking cookies, and then we realized we don't have milk, right? And so we quickly ordered on Panda Mart, and at the point we actually needed the milk for the recipe, the milk was already there, right? And so that's, I think, what really makes the service so magic. And it's super exciting. It's growing, very fast in Asia, in all the Foodpanda markets where we have it live. And really looking forward to bring this to the next level, of course.
I would say that the challenge, I know what Jakob mentioned, it's really around making sure that you also do it economically. I know you could do it uneconomically and fairly easy. But having the right items, and also up to 4,000 items, and we can even get even further later on. That also means that every day, multiple times a day, often you will have to replenish your store, and you have to do a good forecasting model. And so if you have the larger number of items you have, the harder it gets. You could of course easily have 500 items or 1,000 items and deliver fast uneconomically. Everyone could do that. It's just to have too many riders showing up at the warehouse. But and obviously we also want to make it economical, and that's really the tough challenge. I think Asia has done tremendously well.
Right, thank you. So we have another question from Natalie that I would like to pose to all of you, and I will time frame it so you get maximum 1 minute each to answer this question, which is: what is the biggest achievement that Delivery Hero has accomplished during the last 10 years? And Niklas, since you've been here the longest, we'll start with you.
I think that the single largest achievement that we keep the culture of day one. I don't know, now I'm copying Jeff Bezos here, but that they have this startup mentality despite being the size that we are. And I think we have the best of the two. And we're a startup, but not the bad side of the startup. But a startup will be unstructured, unprofessional, not having processes, and the growth directions can sometimes be very good for some people, but for some people not very good, because there is no process around it. There is no thinking around diversity, inclusion, equitable, the way we lead and so on. So I think we have managed to keep this startup entrepreneur spirit culture where every day we just want to make it better and delight our customers, while still be at the size and have also the professionalism that we have in the team. I think that's by far the largest achievement, and that is also what's going to make us, I believe, very successful for the next 10, 20, 100 years, hopefully. Yeah.
Thanks, Niklas. Sofia, what about you?
Well, I was going to say something very similar. So building on what Niklas said, I think one thing that still makes me very happy to work here is that we try a lot of new things, and there's a lot of room for experimentation. I restructure my team, we approach things in a new way, we have conversations that sometimes other people might not have. And I think that this is also with aiming higher, this is really strong in the company, and you might think, okay, wow, now every decision has much bigger repercussions, right? Because we're bigger, and should we stop doing that? Should we slow down doing that? And I think that really, really big strength of ours is that is really strong in the DNA of the people. And I'm super happy because this is what keeps me going, right? It really gives me fuel to continue. And I really love that part of our business. Bear in mind that I completely agree with the culture part, that I don't want to repeat it, but yes, this is another thing, yeah.
Thanks, Sofia. Jakob, hit us. 1 minute.
I think one super exciting thing about Delivery Hero and Foodpanda is really the fundamental business model, or the fundamental business this company operates. I just don't think there's many business models out there where you have actually the chance in a given country to provide somewhat an emotional touch point with every single person in that country, where you can really you are a company, you run an app which is part of everybody's life in a country. And I think this is something super exciting, where everybody uses it. Most people like it, and it somehow adds to their lives in an emotional way, because food is very emotional for most people. And so I think, and that's, I think, something very unique and something very novel and that makes me very excited.
It is fantastic, and sometimes and it's such a simple thing, but it's still occasions when it's life-saving almost for me. When you're like, oh gosh, I cannot, I have to get food and I have to cook and I don't have time and I want to spend it with, I don't know, maybe my kids or my friends, or maybe I want to do something else. And those moments, just knowing that it's just a tap away, it sometimes can be such a relief, such a point of argument or discussion you would have, I don't know, back home, if like who's cooking and why do we cook this, and not pasta again. I'm not a good chef, so that I can actually surprise with a good Indian or a good Thai or a good poke bowl, and having it that available, I find it fantastic. Yeah.
Thanks, Niklas. So we have a couple of questions that are around challenges and the future of delivery, and we're going to get to those in just a minute. But first, a question that really pops out, and it's from one of our internal team members, which is more around sort of how you work. And I find it very interesting myself. So the question is as follows: how do you ensure that you have visibility and understand what you need to know when the business is so large and there are so many topics, teams, regions, and projects on the table? How do you juggle that? I'm also interested to know.
I can start. So I think it all comes down to making sure that you have trusted person, a clear responsibility and ownership, and clear also goal and perspective for that person. What do we expect from this team, this area, this person? And that filters through. Having a good structure in that, I think is a core. And of course, also knowing that, I always know that everyone will do whatever is best for the business and for the customers. I never have to I believe, and I think of I don't know, maybe they do it for other reasons and so on. I know that whatever decisions they will be standing in front, I know that they will take the right decision at their heart. Sometimes it could be the wrong decision, but at least they did what they believe being the right. And if it's not right, they will learn for the next time. So I think giving that trust. Then I think for me, there are always some areas that I feel like here I want to be extra involved because here I have my passion. Or maybe here I can contribute. Maybe there's some learnings I've made in the past. Or so for me, it's more to picking the right areas where I want to focus. And then I just have to trust that the structure and the people that in all other areas, they will do the right thing when the decision is there.
Jakob.
Good question, of course. And it's not only kind of the teams being large, it's also like the functional expertise of the teams becomes, of course, deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And so we're really understanding like what cutting edge things we are now doing in a specific function becomes harder and harder. I think eventually it's for me about two things. I think first of all, as an organization gets bigger, you just need to build great teams and delegate a lot of those things, and trust those people who run it. Yeah, because the truth is you cannot be in all details to the last digit. It just doesn't work anymore. Yeah, that stopped a couple of years ago, unfortunately, for myself at least. The other aspect is that, of course, still there are topics which are just super, super important and we cannot miss, right? And so as a senior manager, I think it's always very important to really decide for yourself, like what are those very limited amount of topics where you want to go extremely deep and extremely detailed. Yeah. For a very long period of time in Asia, for us, this was around logistics, because logistics was just so complicated, so new, and also so impactful on our P&Ls and on the customer experience, right? If we deliver in 60 minutes versus 40 minutes versus 30 versus 20 makes a huge difference, right? And so a lot of my time for probably more than 2 years was really focused a lot on that aspect. And I didn't go, for example, so deep in, let's say, marketing, yeah? Even so, this is also, of course, obviously incredibly important. And so it's, But nowadays, I probably spend less time on logistics because there's very holistic technology around it. Also, a lot of kind of fundamental questions are kind of more and more resolved. And yes, we are pushing, of course, still from average 20 minutes now to 15, and this is still incredibly important. But there's also, in the meantime, so much expertise and so many smart people doing this that there's not so much for me to add there also anymore, to be very, very frank. And so now I focus on other topics where today I believe there's more attention needed, and also B, I can add something. Yeah.
So focus, trust, and knowing where you can add value.
Yeah, thanks for summarizing this very concise.
That was just what I would pick out. Sofia, we have a question around how we differentiate from our competitors. And Jakob, you mentioned part of the offer. I mean, we want to go faster, we want to have a bigger choice, we want to be more personalized. But Sofia, what does that look like in terms of branding? How do we think about differentiating from our competitors when we look at the strong brands that we're building?
I think it all comes back to adding value to the customer and building something that people, and I think Jakob also was talking about this, right? It's building something that is part of everybody's lives and that becomes really the top of mind association, right? By default, people just think always, I want food, I need Foodpanda, I need groceries, I need Panda Mart. That has to really lead there, and of course it has to be the preferred brand. People have to really become attached to it and love it and recommend it to people. I think it comes down to really understanding what customers really want and need in the markets and what brings value to them, and also standing out with your tone of voice, your personality. I think that there's so much that we do. For example, even with Jakob, we're talking about color salsa last week and how we do things in Asia versus Europe and how that's different, and it makes sense, that we do it differently. And I think that, again, this is part of our strengths that we were talking about before, about even how we take one brand and we slightly differentiate between the countries because that's needed, and that's part of building something differentiated, but that adds value and people really resonate and they feel it like an emotional attachment to. Because at the end of the day, that's like, I think the aim of any brand is to become a loved brand, right? For the customer.
For sure. Beloved brand and a beloved employer. And I think Delivery Hero is able to check those boxes in many, many, many places across the world. Final question. And Niklas, I will pull this one to you before we start wrapping up this panel. Having started with food delivery, now we attempt to deliver anything. What's next? Where do you see DH heading in the next 5, 10, 20 years?
It's very hard to tell specifics. I don't know what we will do. I don't know what I can say is that we will build what the customers want, and they will be the guiding star for what we're building. And the good part with people, I think, is that I don't know, we're all very complex, but in the end, we're all very similar. We have similar needs, and those needs don't change so much. We want to have it more convenient. We ideally want to have it faster. We want to have better service. We want to have, I don't know, when it comes to food, it should taste good. So when you think about that, I don't know, the technology question becomes very basic. Whatever technology achieves that this will be faster, that will be cheaper, that will be better quality, the enabling customers to find what they want, to maybe recommend what they need. So then how that is going to be done. I don't know, maybe it's going to be a robot delivery, or maybe it's going to be how we order is not going to be a mobile phone in 10, 15, 20 years. And those questions are impossible to answer, but I do know that it's going to be a faster service. It's going to be even better service. It's going to be you're going to get better food or better items, better selection in the store, and you're going to get it at a better price. And then it might be additional things to make it even more convenient, so additional services that they require, not delivery of anything, but maybe there are other ways that we can serve our clients or customers. And I think that is the core of also being a startup. What we will do in 100 years, I don't know, who knows. But as long as we have a very strong culture, I'm sure we're going to define whatever it is. If it's food delivery, if it's delivery, maybe it's not delivery at all. But with a strong culture, I'm sure we're going to do very well.
Thank you, Niklas. I don't think I can wrap this panel up any better in what you just said. So I'll just go ahead and say thank you for joining, Sofia, Jakob, and Niklas, and for sharing your most challenging but also most cherished moments with us. The next Hero Talks is coming out in June, so stay tuned for our social media updates for that. And until then, I wish you a happy anniversary and a lovely week ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for everyone working so hard. Thank you.